guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna make an update on the Gemma Grow Bulbs situation. There are some things that I would like to show you given it's only been a month and a half or so, and if you know orchids, you know that they really don't grow all that fast, so not all plants are showing signs, but I did make an experiment with some fast growing plants as well, and well, the difference is enough to make me completely invent a new setup for my Phalaenopsis, the special Phalaenopsis. We'll get to that though. First of all, let me show you exactly what the difference is. So this is the setup today. I will put in a corner of the screen the way it used to look like, and as you can see, everything pretty much remained the same. There is only one difference. If you remember, last time I planted some lettuce as my fast growing plant, and well, the seeds were a little bit old and not all the lettuce sprouted, so I switched with a tomato. But overall, all of these plants are actually okay. I was really interested to see if the quantity of anthocyanin on this particular Phalaenopsis would decrease, and I would have to say it did decrease whenever I film my birds eat. Sorry about that. So I do feel like the quantity of anthocyanin decreased a little bit. This is an indication that the light is not as strong in the eyes of a Phalaenopsis, as it were, but I do still have some anthocyanin there. I will show you a little bit later, but the higher light plants don't really look all that great. I think I do see less anthocyanin on the Ascocentrum, which is a Vendacious orchid. Other than that, all of the other plants look fine. The Oncidiums are fine. The Paphiopedilum and Silagene are absolutely fine, but those are lower light plants. The African violets look really great. The miniature one looks fantastic. I really like how the crown looks like, but I do currently have a thrips infestation, so I had to move one of the violets. The other one looks very good as well, but it does have thrips, and I am currently in the process of separating my African violets from the orchids. Now the tomato is included because I wanted a very fast growing plant, and vegetables are known for growing very fast. The lettuce didn't make it, the seeds were too old, but I had some tomato sprouts. This was the plant that showed the biggest difference, hence why I was inspired to completely change the setup. Now we'll get to the new setup towards the end of this video. I'm currently in the process. You might detect it's a little bit echoey, more than usual in the greenhouse. That's because I'm moving plants around. But what I think I discovered through the tomatoes is that the grow bulbs themselves, they're not very powerful, sadly. They are 9 watts, which is great, but I feel that for the purpose of some more highlight plants, such as highlight orchids, I feel like they should have been a little bit more strong. And if you noticed in my setup, I did have cattleyas and things of the sorts, which I'm sure did not receive enough light. Because at first, this one was the biggest tomato plant, and it stayed bigger than this one for about 2 weeks or so. As this one started to gain weight, it started to grow better and luscious, and just absolutely phenomenal if we just compare these two. So yeah, to compensate for the height of the bulb, I initially raised this tomato to make it a little bit more equal with the light on the shelf. But at some point when it got tall enough, it benefited from all of that light and it just started to grow so much better. So what I concluded is that the LED panel is stronger than the Gemma Grow Bulbs. However, the quality of the light, I mean, this is okay, but this is so much better. I am pretty surprised. So because of this observation, I decided to create another grow space only with the Gemma bulbs, but for Phalaenopsis, because they are lower light plants, and I do have some absolutely amazing Phalaenopsis orchids at the moment, very special ones that I want to provide some good quality light for. The good thing is they don't require as much light, so the Gemma bulbs should be adequate, should be enough. Tomatoes, they require a lot of light, sunlight preferable. So I'm not surprised that the light was not necessarily sufficient, but I am surprised at the difference. And again, by all means, this is perfectly fine, it's okay, but this is just so much better. So let's now take a look at the African violets and see if we see any difference there. And that sounded weird. Anyway, let's look at the African violets. Now, after my initial video on the Gemma bulbs, you guys suggested that I put a divider in between these lights, so I did very shortly after. I found an aluminum foil at the hardware shop, and this was quite a long time ago before the quarantine. So I'm really curious about the results as well, because the only way we're gonna know is by bringing them down. You can see that the light is about at the same distance. However, do keep in mind that these violets grew a lot, so they kind of shaded each other. Some of them might not have optimum growth just because they were shaded. So it is about time to separate them anyway. So these are the violets. These two have been under the Gemma bulbs. These have been under my normal IKEA bulbs. Do we see a difference at a first glance? I think I see a difference in shape, but the best thing to do is to take them variety by variety and just compare the two of them. So I'm gonna put the trays down and find the ones with the same name. All right, so here we have ND Smuglianka Darky. They are all the same variety. There we go. And with this one, I did have 4 of them, so I could put 2 on each side. And do we see a difference? Because I sure can. I don't know if it's good or bad. So they're all Smuglianka Darky, and I do believe I see a color difference. This side is definitely darker. Or is it just me? This side is not so dark. At the same time, I feel like this side has a little bit of a tighter crown, while this side, not so much. I honestly don't know which is better, but you can see there is a difference between the two. So the light actually did make a difference. So let's continue, maybe others will be more telling. Next, I did have another 4 of the same variety. This is Buckeye Sorcerer. They're all of them the same variety. And with these guys, I don't know. We see that we have 2 of them in bloom. This one has better flowers. By the way, this is the Gemma side. Always the Gemma side will be on the left. So you can see that the flowers on this one don't look so great. But at the same time, I do have that thrips issue. Maybe some thrips got to it, I don't know. Both of these don't really look all that spectacular flower-wise. This one didn't bloom just yet. Other than that though, foliage-wise, I don't think one looks better than the other. I cannot tell. There's a little bit of powdery mildew here, and this is because they were all very crowded together and air movement was not sufficient. That's okay though. Is it enough to make me have an opinion? No. I think these look pretty similar. Next up, I had 3 of them. I decided to place 2 under the Gemma light and 1 under my normal IKEA lights. And again, I don't know if I can clearly tell a difference. Yes, this one looks a little bit tinier, and also the number of leaves differs. Also, I did see that this one has a bud here. But is it enough to make me draw a conclusion? I don't know. Indeed, these 2 look a little bit better than this one. Next up, a miniature. This is Jolly Bambino, all of them. And with these guys, do we see a difference? I do think this side, which is the LED side, has more leaves, but it's a little tight, do you see? These are not so tight, but they don't really have all that many leaves. Next up, another miniature. This is Allegro Winsome Pink, and with these 2, I do see a difference, but again, not sure which one is better. This one, which was under the normal IKEA bulbs, has a deeper color, but it is tighter, while this one has a lighter color, but it's not so tight. Which is better? Also, do you see the stems are a little longer on this one? So yeah, I don't know which one is better from these 2. They are, however, different. Next up, all of these are Orchids Bumble Magnet, and in the case of these guys, I cannot tell. There is no difference. This is the Gemma side, this is the normal IKEA bulb side. There is no difference in my opinion, not even color-wise. Both of these are pretty well formed. There is no tightness. They look identical to me, so there we go. Next up, same story. So this is Jolly Sun Chaser. All of these are the same variety. Where are you? There we go. These 2 perhaps are a little bit bigger than these 2, but other than that, the leaf color is the same. Tightness, very, very similar. I don't see much of a difference. They all look good. So again, no real difference between these. Next up, both of these are LE Bucket and the name that I shall not pronounce. Do we see a difference? Yes, this one appears to be a little larger. Leaf color though seems to be pretty identical, and that's Maya eating. She's a very messy eater, don't mind her. Also, this one appears to have a little flower spike here, or a little flower stem. This one doesn't. So yeah, this one actually looks better than this one. And now everything switches again. This is the Gemma side, and this is the normal IKEA lamp side. Do we see a difference? Absolutely. These guys look better. This is a little chatterbox. All of them are. But yeah, with this one, I can clearly see that these guys are bigger than these guys. Also, coloration is better on this side rather than the normal IKEA bulbs. So let's draw some conclusions about the African violets as well. Do I see any major difference between the two sides? I would have to say no. There are instances in which I saw better results here, and then instances where I saw better results here. This being said though, keep in mind that both of these bulbs were placed at the same distance. And as I saw with the tomato, the Gemma light bulb shines when it's closer to the plant because it simply is not as intense and powerful as these normal house bulbs. These are intended to produce visible light. They're intended to light up your house. They're supposed to be bright, but they don't really care much about the spectrum that they emit. Also, another important difference is that a normal house bulb has this diffuser on top of the LED that makes the angle of dispersion a lot bigger than the grow bulb. The grow bulb cannot have this on top because this interferes with the spectrum it puts out and pretty much annihilates all the benefits that this spectrum supposedly has. So with the grow bulb, the problem was that I couldn't get it closer to the plants because I would limit the angle of, let's say, proper light. So you saw that I had 2 trays of African violets and I put the light somewhere where everybody kind of received light. If I would have put the bulb lower, only the first tray would receive light, the other tray would not receive pretty much anything. So the test here was to see if the bulbs, which were not equal when it comes to the intensity, let's say, of the light, did the same job. And I think they did. Yes, I don't see any difference, but one of these bulbs was not as intense as the other. This being said though, do I think African violets absolutely don't do great in normal light, let's say normal house light? No, I think they can do absolutely fine with that. As for the diverse setup, let's put it like that, with the different types of orchids, I don't think it's a functional one, and I'll tell you why. Based on what I observed with this tomato, again, the grow bulb shined more, well, metaphorically, when the plant reached a certain height. And to be honest, at the height where the Cattleya and the other Vanda-like orchid were, I don't think they're receiving enough light. I don't think the grow bulb is doing it for them, simply because they're not elevated enough. And I cannot actually elevate them because, well, that angle of dispersion thing that I told you about. If they're closer to the light, it does mean they receive better light, but I cannot put 2 orchids under this bulb because they're just so close. The angle is very narrow here. So only one will receive optimum light. The other ones might be shaded or might just receive a little bit of what they should receive. So that's the downfall of the bulb, to be fully honest, but I will try to improve a little bit the setup just so I can take better advantage of the bulbs. As for the other more house-friendly IKEA setup, well, it actually will go well. I didn't have any doubt about it because these are both very low light plants. I do have to say I like the color that the Phalaenopsis got under this light. So you see, it's a lot more intense, it's not so pale. I have noticed that the Polychilus subgenus tends to really get discolored under bright light, but has this wonderful color under lower light. So anyway, this setup was more as a demonstrative way of what you can do in your apartment. But obviously, I only had 1 bulb here above these orchids. It's not enough for highlight orchids, but for stuff like Phalaenopsis and Paphiopedilums, absolutely fine. But I do think I will move this in the house because it just looks pretty, and I will put a normal bulb, but definitely it can work with a grow bulb as well. And currently this is the new Phalaenopsis setup. Sadly, I cannot continue the African violet experiment. I will pick it up at a later date. Maybe when this whole lockdown is over, I will get myself a few more grow bulbs just to see how they bloom. But currently, I really have to take them out of the greenhouse, treat them separately, because the source of my thrips are actually the African violets, not the orchids. So in order to treat the orchids, I feel like I need to get rid of the African violets from the greenhouse and reintroduce them at a later date. So in the Gemma or new Gemma setup, I decided to put the novelty or the special Phalaenopsis orchids because they are very dear to me, and I do believe the quality of the light is better. I don't think it's strong enough for particular orchids such as Cattleyas and other highlight orchids at the height that I want to keep these bulbs. So I feel like these Phalaenopsis, which are low light plants, will do the best. I do have a few other plants there, such as a Phalaenopedium and some hybrids. Currently this shelf does receive some indirect light as well, but most of the light comes from the bulbs, so I want to see how these orchids perform. I also want to see if the leaf color will improve, because some of these have the tendency to just become very discolored in bright light, and I do have a few of them which have very pale leaves. I want to see if I can improve the leaf color with the Gemma bulbs. I also will keep experimenting with fast growth plants such as other tomatoes and other vegetables because they do grow fast, and I want to see if that was just the fluke or the Gemma does actually promote better growth. And since orchids grow very slow but vegetables very fast, I will definitely continue to experiment with vegetables just to further test and confirm my suspicion about the bulbs actually being better quality, just not strong enough. So that is about it for today's update. I really wish I could continue with the African violets, but I really think it is time to separate them because they're just full of thrips and the orchids are not, except for their flowers. So I think I need to treat them separately for a while, but I will get back to it. As I was saying, I am considering getting some more grow bulbs and continuing with other types of plants. For now though, I feel like the best suited orchids for this light are these beautiful Phalaenopsis, and also continuing with the seeds, the vegetable seeds that grow fast, just to see if the results are consistent. But so far my conclusions are that highlight orchids maybe not the best for these particular bulbs because they're just not strong enough. Obviously, if you have one orchid and one bulb and you put the bulb on top of the orchid, that will absolutely work. But yeah, we all know I don't have one orchid, I have many. I am okay with the bulbs, and we're gonna see how these Phalaenopsis perform in the future. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, and other fun orchid subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider becoming a member or visit the merch store linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's always nice to stay in touch there as well. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!